Aris, and this is my talk, Neurodiversity and Games. So I am a game designer and an instructor. I use they, them pronouns, and welcome to this talk, Neurodiversity and Games. A quick introduction about myself. I have a master's in higher education and game design. I formerly was a games user researcher at Harmonix. Currently, I'm an associate game designer at Ubisoft Red Storm in North Carolina. I am the global co-lead of the Neurodiversity ERG, which I will be talking about today. Also a game design instructor and student mentor, and I have ADHD, OCD, and bipolar. So to get us started, make sure we're on the same page. I'll give a definition for neurodiversity, and that is the range of differences in individual brain function and behavioral traits regarded as part of the normal variation in the human population. Some common neurodivergencies that you've probably heard of are autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, Tourette's, and some chronic mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, OCD, and BPD. Life with neurodiversity consists of many struggles, including social challenges such as not understanding jokes, being told you're too blunt or too sensitive, learning difficulties such as difficulties with reading, math, or auditory instructions, work issues like coworkers confusing passion for aggression, maybe struggling to understand tasks, too bright lights could happen if you have sensory processing issues, or you could also hear electricity bubbles popping in your soda can. These are some common things that you live with as a life of neurodivergent person. Life with neurodiversity also comes with advantages such as pattern recognition. For example, people with autism excel at pattern recognition and spotting irregularities. People with dyslexia are really good at seeing the big picture. Also, creative thinking. Neurodivergent people, by definition, are outside of the box, so thinking that way is natural to them. Also, emotional sensitivity and hyperfocus. These are two other areas that are strong sides of neurodiversity. So our main topic today is neurodiversity at work. We'll open with a quote. The behaviors of neurodiverse people run counter to common notions of what makes a good employee. Solid communication skills, being a team player, emotional intelligence, persuasiveness, salesperson type personalities, the ability to network, the ability to conform to standard practices without special accommodations, and so on. These criteria systematically screen out neurodiverse people. Currently, it is estimated that 15 to 20% of the global population is neurodiverse. However, 34% of the Australian, 78% of UK, and 77% of US autistic adults are unemployed, and 67% of ADHD adults are under or unemployed. However, a report from JP Morgan Chase in Financial Times found that professionals in its Autism at Work program made fewer errors and were 90 to 140% more productive than neurotypical employees. So despite significant business advantages to hiring neurodiverse employees, they are critically underemployed. People with autism often excel at pattern recognition and spotting irregularities with sustained attention to detail and the ability to focus on complex and repetitive tasks over a long period of time. People with dyslexia tend to think outside the box and are more likely to produce innovative and creative ideas. Interestingly, though perhaps not surprisingly, the game industry itself does well in hiring neurodiverse people. A 2021 study found that 18% of the UK game developers self-identify as neurodiverse. This is up from 11% in the previous year. So I want to talk to you about how some of the neurodiversity efforts work here at Ubisoft. You hear me talk about ERG. This stands for Employee Resource Group. And this is an employee-led interest group around a common interest or shared trait, primarily focused on providing support within the company. Our ERG was founded in February 2021. We currently have over 300 members in 20 countries. Our programs include peer support, such as Teams channels dedicated to numerous neurodiversities, where members share personal experiences and resources. We also provide management training and internal and external events. The way this relates to games is that we have the cognitive accessibility pillar. This is a pillar where we are defining how our games are accessible to players with different abilities and different accessibilities that they have needs. And this one is specifically for cognitive, so making sure that our player base can access and actually play our games. And then we have ND or neurodiverse coded characters, so characters who are written as though they are neurodiverse. We have ADHD characters, autistic characters, and such in the games. And then there are also internal projects, so games that are focused specifically around different neurodivergencies or just different sets of diversities, and these games focus on these things instead of it just being a character or something that is talked about in here, as well as various other projects that we have going on. So how does this look in practice? I'd like to talk a little bit about that, of how you can take what we have done, and I'll go into that in more detail, and do this in some of your own studios. So typical characteristics of a neurodiverse person can include a highly attuned central nervous system. People are both often highly sensitive and high achieving with great potential. All that they need is an employer who can see and embrace this potential and make any adjustments necessary. So in practice, recruitment is our first area. Talking with looking at interview structures, neurodiverse people are unlikely to score high on typical interview structures. At Ubisoft, we have started to break it up into, instead of your normal, like your phone screen that you have and then having people do design tests, we are building alternate routes to employment, and that includes doing internships and mentorships that are available to people before they even become employees, so they get a chance to know the people that they could be working for, and so that we get a chance to know the candidate and really see their strengths. We also can have social partners. So this is something that we're building a lot right now with building our external network. And that is like with companies like Specialist Earn, where they are focused on specific, and they have their own pipelines for getting autistic or ADHD or other neurodiverse candidates into the workforce. So you can pair with these external partners that are already doing that. And we have several of those connections that we work on. Hangouts, I really enjoy. And this is the idea of, those are comfortable gatherings, usually like half a day, in which neurodiverse job candidates can demonstrate their abilities in casual interactions with company managers. Thinking of like coming in and having coffee and getting to meet somebody and spending an extended period of time with them, instead of that nerve-wracking 30 minutes where you're sitting across the table. And then there are also longer paid training programs, and larger companies tend to do this more, or you could think of this as a sort of internship where you're bringing in someone who perhaps has the skills and just needs a little bit of training, or they just need time for you to get to know them. And this is something that we are working on as well with Ubisoft, with some of our pipelines of bringing in new talent. And instead of just going through a normal interview process where you have a few phone calls and then a few meetings, we're just bringing them on for longer periods of time to really get to know this person. And this is a paid opportunity that we do. Also in practice, we have accommodations. So now that you have hired your neurodiverse employees, like what are you doing for them when they're actually in? And the first would be your support ecosystem. So internal and external resources for them, such as like alternative meeting methods or different work hours. You can also have different career management structures. So making sure that you are not just having one career path, but you could have multiple or different ways of getting there. And the studio design itself, like do you have quiet rooms? Do you have appropriate lighting or headphones? Can you work remotely? We are doing a lot of flex work or a lot of remote work now at Ubisoft, so allowing people to work in an environment that best suits them. Finally, we have training, and this is something that we're really pushing right now, training for management so that they can best understand how to work with neurodiverse employees, bringing them the ideas that we have put together and the resources and the tools, and training the managers directly. We also have coworker training. So we're building out programs where you're training the peers around you, making essentially README files so you get to know about your coworkers and how they like to work, and you can interact with them in ways that will be the most effective. And then also pairing this with intersectionality training. And that would be understanding that people with a neurodiversity might have more than one, or they'll have other aspects of themselves that impacts their work or may impact with their neurodiversity, of like perhaps they come from different marginalized background, and those are important to remember that they will intersect. So just some summary of some of those points that what we're doing with Ubisoft is like we're making sure that we have flexible approaches. Are we having alternative sorts of interview, different types of pipelines for employment, different sorts of career path, or different ways that we can measure their performance instead of just a regular annual review, maybe more frequent check-ins. Promoting the support. So it's good to build all of those accommodations that we just discussed, but then also making sure that you are promoting them to your employees and promoting the different trainings and all that to your neurotypical employees as well. And then finally, management training. This is the foremost thing that we're working on right now at Ubisoft, making sure that the managers are getting their direct training that they need in order to support their neurodiverse employees. That's it for me. That's the quick summary for that. Thank you very much for coming to this talk. If you want to continue the conversation at any point, you can reach me at any of these social media or join our Discord that we had started out for it. Thank you.